Hello everyone, welcome to my little Bayonetta crash course, how to enjoy Bayonetta, I think is what I'll call this. And I'm by no means the best Bayonetta player out there, but I know enough to pass on some wisdom to anybody who's just starting out. So I'm going to start this video off assuming that you've never played Bayonetta or you've played very little of it. I'll cover some other stuff later, so what I want to do is I want to have sort of a cutoff point where if you've never played the game before, you can watch up to that point and then, go and play it fully. And, after that I'll get into some other stuff. So I don't want to ruin the game for anybody because kind of discovering things is part of the fun. Experimenting and figuring things out for yourself is part of the fun. And I highly encourage you to go and do that. But before you head off to play the game fully, I do think there is some things that you should know before you start. And I'm not normally a person who says that. I prefer to go into every game blind and I sort of encourage people to do that. But I think in this case, there's at least one very important thing that you're never told at the start of the game, which really improves your enjoyment so much it's worth knowing on your first playthrough. So I'm going to cover that first. The thing I'm talking about is called Dodge Offset, right? So if you're getting into Bayonetta, maybe you're... One of the things you'll be aware of before you even play it, most likely, is that Bayonetta goes into witch time when she dodges an enemy at the right time. So if an enemy attacks you and you dodge at the right time, you go into witch time. And I'm going to mute that thing there. There we go. So you go into witch time whenever you dodge at the right, within a certain window when the enemy attacks. And you might sort of think that that is Bayonetta's central mechanic, right? Because it's the most heavily advertised thing. It's one of the most iconic things about the game. It's sort of, that's what Bayonetta is about, right? Bayonetta is about witch time. Well, if you still think that, you're wrong. And if you do still think that, you just haven't played the game long enough to realize you're wrong on that point. It's not even up for debate. The central mechanic, it's questionable what the central mechanic actually is, but I think really when you break it down, most of the game mechanics sort of tie into this concept of dodge offset, right? The core mechanics are all really about exploiting and getting the most out of this mechanic. Dodge offset is a thing which is actually in your menu at the start, so if you really want to experience the game for yourself, you can go and look it up in-game in the menu. It's in the techniques menu. I would show it here, but I don't want to leave practice mode just yet. You can go and look at it there and it'll explain what it is and maybe you can figure it out for yourself. So if you're really intrepid, you can go off and do that now. But I'll explain it now. And what it is it allows you to continue a combo after you dodge. What you'll find is in Bayonetta in particular, the enemies are very aggressive. So you're often up against multiple enemies and they're often very aggressive. And it means that you rarely get to finish your combos. So you might want to do this one, right? All punches. This is the most beginner combo there is, right? You just tap the punch button over and over and over again. You get a nice big punch at the end, and that's good. And most of the combos in Bayonetta are similar to this in a way, anyway. They reward you heavily at the end, right? So the goal is to try and finish the combo, and that way you get rewarded more with a Wicked Weave, the big punch. But unfortunately for you, especially on the higher difficulties, and you should be aiming to play on the highest difficulty you reasonably can eventually. Start off on whatever is comfortable for you, like normal or whatever. But, the goal of these types of games is to try and get better. And the more you play and the harder enemies you go up against, the harder the game gets. Even just in the later stages of a normal playthrough, you'll find that doing this is just not going to happen. You are not going to get that fully uninterrupted length of time against one enemy, right? It's going to come up so rarely. At that point, you've probably beaten all the other enemies, and you just have just one guy left to wail on, right? That's not going to happen. And even the shorter combos like punch, kick, punch, which is the simplest combo. If you want to just learn one combo, it doesn't do a lot of damage, but it's the simplest one. I'll cover the combos in the later segment, but anyway. If you want to just learn one combo, there you go. But you might not even have time to get that done, right? Because the enemies are so aggressive. So what happens then? If you're in the middle of this and you dodge, you're screwed. You have to start over again. But by using dodge offset, you can continue your combo. So I'll just show it in action, right? So normally if I do punch, kick, punch, I get the combo. That's the goal. If I do punch, kick, dodge, punch, nothing happens. I've started the combo over. You'll see this, that's just the first move again, right? So I'm starting the combo over. But if I do punch, kick, dodge, offset, punch, we get the Wicked Weave. So what's the difference? The difference is just all I did when I did the combo was I did punch, hold the kick button, dodge, punch again. So punch, hold, kick, dodge, let go, punch. So punch, kick, hold, punch. So basically while you're dodging, you're just keeping that kick button held until the dodge is about to end, and then you tap the punch button again. And then you get your Wicked Weave. And you can apply this to any combo in the game. So if we had that one that we were doing, see how I'm now in the flurry attack phase, even though I just dodged. And you can even do it over multiple dodges. So what you can do is punch, dodge, kick, dodge, punch. And so we got 2 dodges in, and we still finished our combo. And this is what Bayonetta is all about. And one more thing that I will say before you go. So this is the point where you've learned what you need to learn, believe it or not, right? 2 more things. If you press the, I'm playing on the PC version, so if I press the back button, which is select if you're on a PlayStation controller, minus if you're on the Switch, you know the button I'm talking about. If you press that button in the loading screen, you go into practice mode in the loading screen, and it allows you to just mess around in here for as long as you want. Of course, you could just boot up a level and just do this in a level anyway, but yeah. So you can do that. And one more thing I will tell you before you go is 2 more things, sorry. You can go into the menus and learn everything you need to know about the games from the menus and from the UI. Okay, so from here, after I've told you about dodge offset, you really can take it by yourself if you want to. Now, understand you may not want to do that. You know, you might find it a little bit of a chore at first, but it's really enjoyable to discover these things for yourself. And I think that the developers wanted you to do that. I think that they wanted you to appreciate that period where you sort of discover new things. And it allows you to get creative, and maybe you start doing things that other people don't really do as much, and you sort of get into it. You sort of find your own style a little bit or whatever. And one more thing I will say is that by itself, dodge offset is a really cool system, okay? But what really elevates Bayonetta is how the Wicked Weaves and the weapons tie into this system so perfectly. It is a really tightly designed core set of mechanics which works really, really well. The way the weapons work is what puts Bayonetta over the top, right? It's what turns it into a truly great game. So what you'll find is that it's, if you're tapping the button all the time, so if you've played other action games like Devil May Cry or God Hand or Beautiful Joe or The Wonderful 101 or Ninja Gaiden or anything, right? Those games are kind of, the goal is kind of to go in and start slicing things up or punching things to death, right? And so if you start playing Bayonetta, you might start doing that as well. You might just come in and this might be your favorite combo because, yeah, you get lots of punches in and it's good. And you want to just start smacking things in the face as much as possible. And that's okay, And when you start getting better at the game, you can start working that into your play. But to begin with, what you really want to do is you want to capitalize on the way Bayonetta's weapons work, because it works really well with dodge offset. So what you'll notice about Bayonetta's weapons is that they all have a hold property to them. So that's just one punch right there. If you just hold the attack button, that's one punch. That is one punch right there. And I know I don't have an enemy here, but you will be shocked at the amount of damage that does. If all those bullets hit the enemy, like on a basic angel, that will do a lot of damage to that angel. And so Bayonetta is not really all about, you don't really want to do that all the time. You don't want to do that all the time. What you want to do is, you want to do this. And see how you can actually see in the animations how this is the way the game was intended to be played. Because Bayonetta's moving so fast there. And yeah, it's okay, But like, you see this sort of elegance come out of the game when you do it a little bit more slowly. So that's my last piece of advice for you, is just to slow down a little bit. Just slow down. Take your time a little bit. And that way it's just so much easier if you do have to dodge. Because you're already holding the attack button anyway. If you're holding the attack button and something comes along, just dodge, keep it held. Just dodge, keep it held. There you go. You've done your dodge offset without even really trying. So that covers it for the basics. If you haven't played the game yet, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to just go play it, enjoy it. Don't worry too much about it. Just get that little bit better. You'll probably get stone awards at the end of every mission. It's fine. Don't sweat it. as long as you're enjoying the combat and sort of getting gradually, if you're feeling any sort of improvement or if you're just feeling any sort of enjoyment out of the game at all, that's it. That's it. You'll learn the rest naturally as time comes. As you start, you'll get a new weapon and you think, oh, I want to try that, and you'll figure it out. You will. And just keep in mind that the menus are always there to help you as well. Everything is explained in the menus. If you just go in, if you've already bought all the moves, you can go in and just look at them. And they are useful. The vast majority of them are useful. Probably all of them, really. So that covers the basics now. So stop watching. If you haven't played, seriously, stop watching. I'm gonna move on to some more stuff, and I'm gonna be showing off other weapons as well that you might not have gotten yet. Probably not that many of them, but anyway. Okay, so I'm gonna assume we'll go into an actual level in a minute because this practice mode is boring to look at for so long. But I'm gonna assume you've played the game at least a decent chunk now, and you might be wondering, where do I go from here? So you've gotten used to dodge offset by now, hopefully, and one thing that's very prominent about Bayonetta is all these combos on the side, and there's a lot of them, okay? There's a lot of them. Don't let yourself be put off by this list. I know it looks very long and intimidating, but actually you can make do with just a small amount of these, and no matter what weapon combo you're using, a lot of them will play out very similarly anyway, which is either a pro or a con of the game, depending on your way of thinking. But anyway, I will show you the most important ones, okay? So punch, kick, punch is your basic, right? Now that doesn't do much damage. I think the Wicked Weave on that is actually weak. So the longer your combo is, the stronger the Wicked Weave is. I haven't actually tested that, but that's what the menu says. So I'm going to choose to believe it. Punch, kick, punch. If you just want something to get the hell away from you, just punch, kick, punch. If you just want to finish something off, you just want to get a Wicked Weave out, punch, kick, punch. This is probably the next most important one if you really want to start playing around with enemies, okay? Punch, punch, kick, punch. And you'll notice the punch comes from underground on that one. So that means it can launch enemies. Now, only certain enemies can be launched, and only certain enemies can be launched during witch time. They have like a weight class, and so some of them can't be launched at all, some can only be launched during witch time. You'll figure it out as you start using it on enemies. But that will allow you to knock the enemy up into the air. That's your launcher. You can always there's another move you can do to launch, but that's only going to work on really basic angels. It's not going to do very much. So if you want to launch something with a Wicked Weave, that's the fastest way to do it. Or maybe there's yeah, it's probably the fastest way to get an uppercut Wicked Weave. Close enough anyway. So that's your launcher. Punch, punch, kick, kick, kick is the next. You can see how much I've used these relative to the other ones. I really don't experiment with the combos enough. Don't judge me too harshly on this. But yeah, so punch, punch, kick, kick, kick is another important one. So what you'll notice about that one is that you get 2 Wicked Weaves. You get 1 and you get 2. Now, the second one comes out pretty slowly, so you may not always be able to get it off, but that's 2 Wicked Weaves for the price of 1, essentially. So that's what's good about that one. So don't think about them too much. Practice them a little bit and sort of get used to how they feel, and just sort of assign a value to them. So this one is your fast Wicked Weave. This one is your launcher. This one is your double Wicked Weave. Try to think of them that way, and it'll be a bit less intimidating. This one's interesting. Punch, 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 kick, kick, kick. So there's only 1 Wicked Weave on that one, but the interesting thing about this one is it does low sweep attacks, and that can actually sweep enemies off their feet. And it's just a cool combo generally. I just really like the way that one looks. So yeah, that's another good combo in my opinion. Punch, 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 kick, punch. That is also a launch. And you'll see that there's sort of a pattern to that. So you can kind of internalize that as a pattern. Punch, punch. So it's sort of several punches, then a kick, then a punch. It's I don't know if that's making any sense to you guys, but those are the 2 launches. See, launcher 1 there. Punch, punch, kick, punch. And this one is punch, 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 kick, punch. So the last 3 attacks of each of those are the same. It's just got an extra punch at the start. So when you start playing, they sort of feel similar. They sort of feel similar after a while. You get used to it. And before I forget to say, because I'm playing without sound, and I'll leave the rest to you. There's this basic punch attack which you've probably used a lot. That does a nice flurry of punches. And there's a kick variant on that as well. There you go. So those 6 combos or so are probably the best ones to get used to at the start, and then you can gradually expand into the other ones as needs be. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I have no sound on at the moment, so forgive me if I play a little bit poorly. But one thing you should know is that there is a consistent sound effect for pretty much everything Bayonetta does. So if you're actually listening, when you get used to hearing her sound effects, you'll know, okay, I'm about to go into the sweep one. If I do another kick, I'll go into a sweep one, or if I do that, I'll go into this and that. All the sound effects in the game are consistent, so every time an enemy attacks you, he'll make one sound for that attack. I haven't found any exceptions to that rule, maybe some of the bosses, but, you know, there's this very specific noise for every attack in the game, and you can get used to that. If any of you have watched my Devil May Cry commentary, which I will plug in this video, you'll know that you actually react faster to audio than you do to visual by a significant margin. So if you get used to the audio cues, you can play that little bit better. So make sure you've got the sound on. I just can't because I just didn't want to get some headphones. I'm just trying to do this casually. But audio is actually a very important part of the game, so don't neglect it. I'm playing on normal here, so we are using the angel weapon because it gives it to us at the start, the key. Okay. So what else did I want to cover? So I've talked about good combos. I suppose I'll talk about how combos actually work now and how the scoring system works. Again, this is the kind of thing I would encourage you to just go and try and figure out for yourself, because all the information is there. They did this very purposefully so that you could... Oh yeah, another thing before I forget actually. When you've already played the game, you can skip any cutscenes by holding the dodge button and pressing select or minus or back or whatever it is. So you hold dodge, press back, and it instantly skips the cutscene without having to go through the prompt. So that's what I should have done there, and it just makes it a lot smoother to play through the game again. So you know, you'll enjoy your multiple playthroughs more once you get that down. Again, I would encourage you. You'll see when I punch someone, the game tells me you got 10 points for punching that guy, and it actually tells you that for every single thing that you do. So you can work out, you know, you can have fun working out what the best way to do that is. You know, what the best way to keep your combo is, and what the sort of constraints on it are. You know, they wanted you to do that, so try and do it. But if you won't, I will explain. So basically what you'll find is, so I'm getting 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Oh, I messed that up. So I'll just punch this guy a little bit. So if we keep doing punches, what happens after a little while? Takes a few hits. Oh, see, I got 8 for that one. I got 8. And now I just got 6. And now I just got 4. And I just got 2. And it goes down to 1, as you can probably guess. So now we're only getting 1 point per attack, right? I'm actually not sure why that reset 10 there. What did I do? I must have dodged an attack correctly? So anyway, it came up on screen. I wasn't paying attention. But anyway, if you just do basic stuff, your combo degrades. The amount of points that you get for doing them degrades. What resets it, and again, this ties into dodge offset, you know, in a roundabout way, but it is all about dodge offset at the end of the day, is whenever you do a wicked weave, that goes back to 10. And that's how you make your scores count. So not only do you get good points for doing a wicked weave, doing a wicked weave is actually the thing that says, okay, you're allowed to continue scoring points. And if you don't do wicked weaves, you score very, very little. I mean, you can still do okay, kind of, you know, but you're basically getting 10% of the points that you could have gotten if you had done a wicked weave in that time frame, right? So that's the goal of the game. In strictly like, how do I just get the best score? The goal of the game is get a wicked weave out every few attacks. You know, like finish every combo. Basically, is the point. Now, realistically, you won't be able to do that, but you want to try and get wicked weaves out, you know, as frequently as possible. That's the goal. I think that really covers the crux of the scoring system. If you were confused about anything in the scoring system, that should really kind of clear it up. And, you know, you'll get varying amounts for other attacks. So, oh yeah, I'll demonstrate. So I could go in here and I could skip this. by doing this, or I could just hold dodge, press back, and I've skipped it already. See? Before I could even finish the sentence, it was already skipped. So that makes it a lot smoother to replay. Well, I was talking about combos. Yeah, points. You know, different things will give you different amounts of points, but you don't really have to worry about it that much if you're playing well. If you're finishing your combos and you're not getting hit and you're maintaining your combo by continually hitting things, that's just how you maintain it, is just continue hitting things, then you're fine. You know, you've got nothing to worry about. Certain attacks will give you more. I mean, there may be some encounters where you want to score more points. So basically, at the end of every encounter, you're scored on 3 criteria. The first one is damage. If you avoid all damage, you get a pure platinum rank on that. So that's pretty simple. It's just don't get hit, right? The other one is time, which can be a bit of a pain in the ass in Beautiful Joe or the Wonderful 101. But in Bayonetta, it's very lenient, I think, because of torture attacks. Torture attacks take a lot of time to execute. So if you don't do loads of torture attacks, you'll hit the time requirement, no problem. So time, you don't really have to worry about that. Once you're using your Wicked Weaves and sort of continually attacking stuff, time generally shouldn't be a problem. So that leaves the only real, you know, one you have to worry about is score. And again, as long as you're continually pushing out Wicked Weaves like that, you shouldn't have to worry too much. But you can do other things to increase your score. Using torture attacks will get you a lot of points. So you can see the points going up on the right there, depending on how much you mash, by the way. And using angel weapons will also get you a lot of points. So if I pick up the weapon here, if I can. This is one thing I don't like about Bayonetta, is those context-sensitive actions. But anyway, so if you pick up an angel weapon and you hit him with it, that's 50 points right away. And that's just for nothing, basically, you know? You can get way more points with some of the other weapons, depending on what special attacks you do with them. So there are special attacks you can do with those weapons. I think I'll leave that to you to figure out. But depending on what kind of button presses you do, like if you twirl around and press the button, does it do something? You know. Anyway, it's a big enough hint already. But yeah, so by the way, angels drop angel weapons when you use a torture attack on them. So if you're wondering why some of them drop weapons and others don't, it's just the ones you've used a torture attack on. I think some of them are scripted to drop their weapons anyway, maybe. But yeah, if you want an angel weapon, you have to use a torture attack to get it. Another thing to keep in mind is if you really are looking to score points, like if there's one that's really giving you trouble on the point requirement, the best, you know, one of the best ways you can maximize your points is to just fight the enemy normally and then only use a torture attack when you get them down to very little health, because a torture attack is going to kill them anyway. So basically you want to milk them for points before you kill them. You want to get as many points out of them by whittling them down, and then when they're on their last little bit of HP, that's when you torture them. And so again, that's kind of a really cool little quirk to the system that just makes it that little bit better. You want to torture enemies that you've already killed, basically. So, next thing I will do, I think I've covered everything I wanted to say about that. Like, there's all sorts of intricacies to all these systems, you know, but I'm trying to give you a rough overview. This is how to enjoy Bayonetta. It's not everything about Bayonetta. So special moves. Special moves. The first, you know, one of the most important special moves in the game, if you want to start having fun with the enemies, is Afterburner Kick. So you do this by just tapping jump and kick in quick succession. It really is that simple. You can maybe hear it on the controller there. You just press them back to back and you will jump up into the air. And that allows you to follow them up after you do a combo. And I think if I try and knock this guy up, I will. Yeah, I'll kill him. Oh, we've got more here. That's good. Another thing you might want to do, sort of advanced technique, is if you're really looking to get a Wicked Weave out, which you will want to do on the higher difficulties in some situations, you might want to just attack with Wicked Weaves. You might have so little time to do attacks that you want to make every attack count. So what you can do is you can cancel the attack animation pretty much as soon as it starts. And so, like, rather than letting it play out, you just tap tap, tap. I haven't done this in a while actually, so I'm a little bit off on it. There you go. You can see I basically just dodged 3 times into the Wicked Weave because I was actually doing... whoa, don't do that. I was actually doing, you know, tap, punch, tap, kick, tap, punch. You know, punch, dodge. God, it's hard to describe that as you do it. I was doing the basic punch, kick, punch combo, only instead of actually letting the punch play out, I'm just dodging as soon as Bayonetta tries to do the punch. And that way, I waste less time getting to the Wicked Weave. So that's one thing you can do to speed yourself up a little bit. Oh yeah, so I'll knock one of these guys up. We want to do punch, punch, kick. Punch is our combo, only we got interrupted while we were trying to do our Wicked Weave there. This stuff happens. Punch, punch, kick, punch, and then we do our Afterburner Kick. We're right up in his face and we can just start mashing the button if we want. We can do whatever we want now that we have him up in the air. Where's the other guy? He's still there. He's gonna die anyway. Yeah, so Afterburner Kick is the most important of those moves, I think. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones that are important. But this is where you can go to learn about your techniques, special techniques. Dodge offset. You can see the game actually does show you it there, but it never actually comes up on screen. I don't think, even when you're starting, it never comes up and says, "Hey, use this." So stiletto and heel slide. These are just getting closer to the enemy. I tend not to use them that much. Oh yeah, yeah. I'll just want to go through this list first of all. Oh yeah, Tetsu Suzanko and heel stomp. Yeah. So I tend not to use heel slide and. I forget what the other one is. Tetsu Suzanko? Is that? No. Anyway, I tend not to use these moves very much, the ones that get you closer to the enemy, because if you spend one piece of your magic gauge and just double tap, so I'm assuming now at this point you've bought everything, right? Because I forget the names of everything. This one is Brynn Spear, I think is the name of this one. So basically, Brynn Spear allows you to just double tap the trigger and you instantly go to that target, which is handy if they're in the air or if they're just far away from you and you just want to get in on them as quickly as possible. The only problem is it does cost one piece of magic, but I find when I want to use that it's just so fast that the one piece of magic kind of makes up for it, whereas this is comparatively quite slow and risky, you know. But you can use those moves if you want. So basically you just, if you've played Devil May Cry, it should be very familiar. You just hold the lock-on button, push forward, push towards the enemy, so whichever, it depends on the camera. Push towards the enemy and just press the kick or whatever. I tend not to use them all that much. I think just double tapping the lock-on button is just quite a bit smoother and it's cool. And these can take you up to enemies in the air, or it can take you down to the ground when you're in the air, things like that. So that's good. Now, actually, I did forget a very important move, or one of my favorite moves in the game, which is the heel stomp, which is back, forward, and kick. So you do back, forward, and kick. This one can take a little practice. If you've played the Wonderful 101, it might be second nature to you now at this point. But it can take a little bit of practice to do. You do have to flick the stick pretty quickly to get it done. And it costs about 3 gauges of magic. But it's quite fun when you've got an enemy on the ropes and you are willing to spend some magic on it and you just sort of like use it over and over again. You just stomp them to death. There's something very Bayonetta about that's very fun to do. It's very satisfying. So I'd encourage you to try that. But it's also just a good thing to do if an enemy is bugging you, because, you know, it will interrupt them, assuming it lands, which it usually will. It will interrupt them from attacking you and stuff, you know? So it's a good sort of, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, what are you doing? I don't know what you're doing and I don't like it, and I'm going to quickly shut you down as quick as I can. And it's also just a really fun move. And you can do an alternative version by doing a punch as well. That's not as fun though, because you're not stomping on them. No. If you're going to be playing Bayonetta, you might as well do the stomp. That's my thinking on it. Boom. So that's another great move. You'll probably have already used stuff like Crow Within. There's actually 4 different configurations for the magic things you can put around you in Crow Within, which is just, I love when they milk as much mileage out of the controller as possible. So basically, if you tap Oh, I have no magic. Okay, I'll dodge this guy's attack for a minute. But basically, you can either do a punch or a kick button press in the air, and depending on whether you tap or hold the button, you'll get a different configuration of things. Is there... can I never use items, but surely there's one that gives you magic. This one must be. Yeah, I'll use that. So, if I'm in the crow form and I tap punch, I get this, which I can then tap again. But if I hold punch, I get that, which goes around the enemy. Now the difference is one of them costs 1 magic and one of them costs 2. So that the hold one costs 2 magic. It's just so cool that there's like 4 different things you can do as the crow, and it's so easy to do them. That's one of the best things about Bayonetta is just how when you get used to it, you know, you might not be there yet, but when you get used to it, it's just a joy to control. It is just an absolute joy. Everything feels exactly the way it should. Everything's in the right position, you know. Just this stuff, like just holding the button, just works. Look at that. That does a lot of... I think there's like a stun value to every attack, and I've noticed that that one tends to stun enemies quite a lot. So if you want to stun somebody, hold the kick button when you're in the crow form, and you get this lovely arrangement. So yeah, you can press the button again to get rid of them as well. I'm trying to think of what other special moves might be worth covering. Kind of trying to go through sort of the basic ones that apply to every... Oh, I actually forgot this was in Bayonetta 1. I was playing Bayonetta 2 the other day, and I thought that was only added in new. I'll have to start doing that more often. Yeah, so you can do the portal kick. I don't think any of the other ones are particularly worth teaching you. They're worth doing, definitely, especially if you want to mix it up, but they're not worth teaching, I think. So I'll leave it at that. So as for techniques, you know, you can come in here again if you want to look up this stuff yourself. Just come in here. Every combination of every weapon is listed. It's insane, and you can find out what the special moves for each weapon are. But I'll go through at least a couple of them anyway. Another thing, I suppose I should have put this in the basic section, but it's too late now. Another thing to make sure is that when you start playing the game, you don't switch to the sword immediately, okay? So you think, you know, I've played other action games and the sword, I want to use the sword. Don't do that, because the sword is one of the most difficult weapons to get used to in Bayonetta. Because it has the hold property, but the hold property it's not as easy to use as it is with the guns, and so it makes it hard to get used to doing dodge offset at first. So don't use the sword right away just because you use swords in other games. It's not a good idea. You know, Bayonetta uses guns for a reason. Scarborough Fair are probably my favourite weapons in this game, I have to say. So let's get this out of the way and we can do a few more combat encounters. I probably should have just quit out of the menu. Yeah, so there are specific attacks that you can do with certain weapons. Most of the things are the same, so if you do punch, kick, punch, even with these two completely different weapons on, you'll get something that's basically the same thing. It gets a wicked revo quick, and that's fine. You know? If you do punch, 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 you're going to get the string of punches exactly the way you would expect. There's actually... I won't teach that. I only learned a little something about the sword myself the other day. Just this tiny little thing, but it's not relevant. Anyway, I just love the way when you are playing these games you can figure something new out every time you turn them on. But anyway, so the sword does a lot of damage to a single target generally. You know, the Wicked Weaves sometimes have nice arcs on them, which is good. So the punch, kick, punch arc is good for clearing out a bunch of enemies. Though it actually doesn't always hit every enemy. I think it has a limit on the number of enemies it can hit. So it won't actually stun them all. So be careful with that if you're in a high crowd. Odette, the ice skates, you can just... All I'm doing here is just twirling the analog stick to do this, by the way. Most weapons have an attack where if you twirl and press the kick button, you do something. So even Scarborough Fair would have... Oh, you have to be in the air to do that one. You have to be in the air to do that. Yeah, most weapons will have this. Twirl the analog stick to do that. Yeah, so the sword has the hold property of charging up the attack. It's a charge weapon. And the charge will persist when you dodge, but it doesn't... If you only partially charge and then dodge, that doesn't actually count. So it has to have at least some charge, which makes it a bit more risky than something like the guns where you can dodge at any time. It's more high risk, high reward. And if you get interrupted, you know, you're screwed. So there is... I'm trying to think what other attacks there are on this. Oh yeah. There is, if you hold, what is it? You hold the, you hold the lock-on button. He'll do this. And once that's complete, you press the punch button. And you'll fire a big laser beam. It's pretty cool. You'll have a very hard time working that into your combo though, because your combo will drop before that happens. If you are having trouble with your combo dropping, so I think there's another encounter back here that I can do. Your combo, you've got 6 seconds. I know this is a little disorganized to go back to the combo, but look, you know, I'm only doing this casually, alright? So, if you are having trouble with your combo, so you punch someone and, you know, you're under attack and you want to get away and your combo's about to drop, there's two things you can do. You can either press Y, or X, sorry. X, Y, it really depends on the controller. Square on a PlayStation controller. The left face button. You can press the left face button and you'll just shoot your gun. And that's a way of keeping your combo going. Against some enemies anyway. Against some it won't count because they will guard against it, like that guy just did a second ago. You can't always rely on it, but it's a way of keeping your combo going. But the far better and cooler way is the taunt. And if you do that, you will enrage the enemy. He's enraged now, see? The way he's sort of orangey. It means his... I forget exactly what it means. I think it means his attacks come out faster. They do more damage as well, I think. Basically, it makes him more dangerous. Yeah, so the taunt, you... On the default setup, it's just the L button. L1, whatever. I hate the way we have so many names for these buttons now. But anyway, press L1 and you will taunt like so, and hold L1 and you will taunt for longer. So if you hold L1, you can keep a taunt going for a good while. And this is especially useful in some of the special missions where there are some special missions where you can only do damage in witch time, which means outside of witch time you're sort of left waiting for the enemy to attack you before you can continue doing damage. So, you know, I can damage him now, let's say, but now that I'm out of witch time I can't do damage, so I gotta wait for him to attack again. And in order to bridge that gap, I have to do a taunt. So taunting is good for bridging the gap. It also means when you kill one of these enraged enemies that you get more points. Well, you get more points when you attack them, but I think you also get more halos as well. And you'll actually see that reflected on the scoreboard as well. So like I said, everything is on the scoreboard. You'll see if you look at the scoreboard when I punch this guy, his thing has a different colour to it because he's enraged. You get more points for attacking him. It also sort of has this longer hit stop effect to it, which can kind of mess you up. But anyway, yeah, we've covered a lot now. We've covered a lot. Let's see. I did not cover. See, I would like to cover the ice skates, but I'm not that good at using them. I just know that they have some. Mostly when you do a combo that's all kicks, you don't actually get a wicked weave at the end. Not sure why that is. Maybe just because kicks are more powerful. They don't want to reward you for using them all the time. But Odette, the ice skates, do actually have some kick-only combos that end in wicked weaves, I think, anyway. But you have to pause when you're using them, and I am not good at using the pause combos in this game because the window on it is very tight, so I haven't really practiced them. So the window on that is difficult to get used to. One weapon that definitely does need to be shown off, though. But I think I'm not going to cover Durga, Kilgore. Yeah, I think I would also recommend against using the shotguns in the beginning. Shotguns are very good against certain opponents because they will inflict hit stun against enemies that will not have hit stun inflicted by the pistols. Specifically, I'm talking about Grace and Glory, I'll just say. The shotguns are a godsend against Grace and Glory. At least if I remember right. Because if it hits, it doesn't always hit because they dodge a lot. But if it hits, it puts them into pretty significant hit stun for a second, which messes them up, you know, gives you more opportunities, whereas the basic guns won't do that. So the shotguns have their place, but also, again, they are harder to dodge offset with than the pistols, so you don't want to jump to using the shotguns or swords right away. Kulchedra, the whip. This one seems kind of useless at first. But actually, it's an extremely useful weapon when you get used to it. Or it's fun. I mean, on the higher difficulty, its usefulness is a little bit questionable, I think. It's hard to get used to it. At least I've found that. But you can see you can do some pretty fun stuff when you start getting used to it. And one of the easiest ways, by the way, to start doing air combos is just to use a weapon like Kulchedra. So what did I do there? If you want to start getting used to air combos, I did my basic launcher, then followed them up with the Afterburner Kick, then I swapped to Kulchedra, launch in, swap to Kulchedra, jump. So all I'm doing is holding the punch button and jumping as soon as he comes up to me. That's the enemy step maneuver, which you'll be familiar with from Devil May Cry, hopefully. So all I'm doing is just holding the punch button and just jumping at the right time, and I'm jumping off the enemy. That allows me to jump indefinitely. And then if I want to just start punching him, all I do is I just swap weapons. And now I'm punching him today. And similarly, what you can do, there are some stay in the air Alfheims, which make it very challenging to stay in the air. Again, I would prefer if you went and figured this out for yourself, so I really feel like I've covered a lot. Now, I'm going to stop soon because I feel like I've covered a lot. But I'll do at least one more thing. One really cheap and easy way to do these Alfheims. So let's say I'm in one that says, you know, you got to stay in the air. So I punch the guy up, I just do a basic punch combo, and then I just swap, and I just keep swapping. And these guys actually block after a little while if you keep trying to mess around with them in the air, but some enemies won't do that. Like if you get a fairness up in the air, then I'm pretty sure they don't. They can't do anything. Actually, no, I think I'm driving. Ardor, I think, won't block. Yeah, I think they can't block if they are behind them as well. So basically, you just knock the enemy up, follow up with the Afterburner Kick. You can do 2 Afterburner Kicks, by the way. You have to be very quick on the second one, though, because otherwise you'll miss your target. So if you be very quick on the second one, what I recommend is do one, punch him a little bit, then do the other one. Don't try to do them back to back, or you'll probably miss the second one unless you're very fast. And yeah, an easy way to stay in the air is just to either use that Kulchedra thing, where you just hold the attack button and keep jumping off the enemy, or you just keep swapping weapons. And then when time is about to run out, you know, or if you miss the enemy, just go into crow form, and then that gives you like a free 10 seconds or so. So those ones actually become pretty easy when you know what to do. I should put back on Kulchedra because I didn't actually cover everything about that. So this is one of the harder weapons to use, but it's definitely a lot of fun. Oh, I didn't cover accessories as well. I'll have to do that. This is one of the harder ones to do, harder weapons to get used to. It has 3 different things that you can do. So if you just hold the button, it pulls the enemy to you, if possible. So some enemies you can't pull them to you, or again, you can only pull them during witch time. It's the kind of thing you'll have to get used to. If you push the analog stick towards the enemy and hold the attack button, you will go to them instead. So you can do that against all enemies. You get pushed into them. And I think there's one, if you hold back, you do this. So all I'm doing is I'm just pressing away from the enemy on the analog stick as I press the attack button and keeping that direction held, and it pulls them in. For that's gonna go into like if there's any more basic combat encounters there, I'll just restart. Yeah, okay, so the last thing I'll cover then is accessories. Let's see. Generally, you want to keep the Moon of Mahakala equipped at all times, and I'll talk about how to use that. I'll go through that now. You want to keep that equipped at all times. At least I can't think of a reason why you would really want to take it off. Maybe if you're on a really tricky Alfheim and you think that 2 other ones would be worth it. But generally, see, what I hate about taking that off is you get used to having it on. It really feels like something that should be part of Bayonetta's basic arsenal. That's what I think anyway. I think actually if you use the Link costume, if you're playing on one of the Nintendo systems, if you use the Link costume, you get it by default, which is a bit cheap, you know. But anyway, it feels like it should be part of her default moveset, or at the very least you get so used to it, it feels like it is part of her default moveset. So then, if you ever take it off, you'll find yourself trying to use it and forgetting that you don't have it. And by the time you realize it's too late, you've been hit. So all it does is, it allows you to block, it's your parry move, it allows you to block an attack if you tap the analog stick the direction the attack comes from right before the attack lands. Now, the timing is hard to get used to. It will give you some magic, and if you do it correctly, like if you do a perfect parry, which I don't know what the window on that is, really, probably just a few frames, but if you do a perfect parry, you will do a counter attack of some sort. Depends on the weapon. So there you go, I punched him back because I got a perfect parry, and I get witch time as well. So it's a way where sometimes you might just want to use it, especially against projectiles. If the bosses spam projectiles at you, you can sort of spam the left analog stick and finish them that way. But it's kind of like a complementary feature to your dodge. It doesn't replace it. You know, you generally kind of want to be dodging stuff anyway. You don't want to be you don't want to be trying to perfect parry everything, because you can't parry offset. There's no way to continue your combo after you parry, so it doesn't have that many benefits to it really. It's more just a complementary defensive measure. It's like if you've dodged and now suddenly you realize you've dodged at the wrong time, or you've dodged too much, because I don't know if you've noticed, but there is a punishment for dodging too much, which is if you dodge 5 times in a short window, Bayonetta goes into a longer recovery animation, which is an attempt to stop you from spamming it. So she does that. So that's not good. Might look good, but it's not good. You don't want that to happen. So, yeah. The parry just kind of complements your other thing. If you could perfect parry everything, you know, it'd be worth it. Especially with the sword equipped. The sword does a really nice perfect parry. I don't know if I'll be able to get it, but it does this nice counter attack. I'll try and get it here. There we go. That's a really cool counter attack, you know. It's it's nice if you're finishing up a combo and you do that as the last thing. You will just feel so badass, but it's hard to do it consistently, as you can see there. So generally, I think you want to keep the Moon of Mahakala equipped at all times, which really leaves you with only 1 accessory slot. Feel free to disagree with me on that one if you want, but I think it's just so central that you really want to keep it on. That leaves you with a few others. So Witch Time will be instantly triggered. I think you still take damage if you use Celine's Light, so you don't want to use that. That's just sort of a crutch. You don't want... Basically, I think it's not a good idea to use any of the crutch ones if you can avoid it, because you don't want to get used to them, and you want to be spending the slot on something that you can't get otherwise, right? If you just dodged at the right time, you wouldn't need Celine's Light, so you don't want to use that. Again, here's another one. If replenish their vitality by taunting an enemy, okay, that sounds good. But if you just never, this is going to sound stupid, but if you just never get hit, right? If you just never get hit, then you'll never have to use this. And I think you should be, I mean, you might never reach that standard, but you should be hoping to, right? So you don't want to use this one either. Just don't get hit. Just don't get hit. It's that simple. Evil Harvest Rosary is especially useful on the highest difficulty. And the Gaze of Despair. So the Evil Harvest Rosary does damage instead of doing Witch Time. So it drops a bomb. It's very much like the bombs that you see with Durga. And sure, you know what it is. You can try these things and at least get a basic feel for them. It does damage instead of doing Witch Time, which is useful on the highest difficulty. But it doesn't give you many combo points. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're using the Evil Harvest Rosary, you might be getting poor scores and not understanding why. It's because it does a ton of damage and very little combo. And the way to think about it is all that damage is damage that you could have been getting combo points off. So it's not just that it doesn't give you much combo, it's that it actually robs you of a lot of combo potential. It robs you of a lot of points, because if you were to whittle that health down normally, you would have gotten a lot more points. So that's how it's kind of subversive. Again, I think you generally want to keep that one off outside of specific situations. The Gaze of Despair. This will force all enemies to go into the angry mode that you saw when I was taunting them. Can be useful, you know, if you want to earn halos, it's a good way to earn halos. If you want to get more points, it's a good way to do that. But again, not really a central one. You kind of don't want to use that one all that much unless you're showing off. You know, it's a good show off one for sure. But if you're just trying to get by and trying to get pure platinums, you're probably not going to use that one too much. So these 4, so that's already 4 we've ruled out, 5 with the Moon of Mahakala, which leaves us with about 5 left, right? So you really don't have to choose between that many accessories. The Bracelet of Time, which again might look familiar to any Devil May Cry fans. The Bracelet of Time, it's good in a sense. You know, you might see this one and think it's good on the highest difficulty, but it burns through your magic so fast, I really don't think it's worth it. I like this one. I don't know, it's probably one of the lower end ones, but I actually quite like it. So what this does is this means that if you run out of magic, you will automatically, pretty quickly, regenerate 2 magic spheres. Now 2 magic is not really enough to do very much. You can't do, say, a heal stomp with it. You can't just throw out a Wicked Weave with it. You need 3, and that's why it gives you 2, because it's balanced around the idea that you can't just constantly use it to do Wicked Weaves. But it does allow you to do, say, an Brynn Spear. And what I like about this one is that I don't... See, sometimes I'm not paying that much attention to the magic gauge, you know? And if I run out and I try to do an Brynn Spear and it doesn't happen... So Brynn Spear is that one that shoots you to the enemy in an instant, by the way. That costs 1 magic point. If I try to do that and it doesn't happen, I might have been anticipating that it would happen, so I'm not expecting to be where I am and I get hit. And so I like the sort of security blanket this provides, where it means that you probably almost always have at least 1 piece of magic that you can use. And you can use that to do your Brynn Spear with. So I quite like that one. I get the feeling probably the best players would probably, you know, say that that's a bad one, but I like it anyway. The Sergei's Lover, divide themselves into multiple beings. This one does a lot of damage if you use it right. I kind of want to show that one off, so I'll use that one. Pulley's Butterfly. Pulley's Butterfly is just... It's your get out of jail free card. I never use it because, again, I'm thinking in terms of if I was to do this perfectly, I would never need it. So it's another one of those. It's one of those ones that you want to try and avoid using, but also at the same time, it's so powerful that it sort of overcomes that shortcoming. Because what it does is it gives you a couple of free hits, basically. It allows you to get hit for a couple of times. It drains your magic gauge, I think, but it gives you a few free hits that don't count against your rank. So if you're having trouble, and believe me, there are some parts of this game where it's incredibly difficult to avoid getting hit. So if you come up against one of those points, you might be tempted to use the Butterfly. I haven't caved in and started using it yet, but then again, I haven't really pure platinum the game yet, you know? So I have a long way to go before I get there. Oh yeah, so Sergei's Lover is really good. You do this, and then what you want to do, if you do the basic punch, so this divides you into multiple versions of yourself, and if you do the basic punch combo with pretty much any weapon, you will do a sick amount of damage. Look at that. Because, see, the thing to keep in mind with this one is that your clones don't do Wicked Weave attacks, so you're better off doing something that actually and I don't think they fire bullets either. So you're better off doing something that physically interacts with the enemy, and that way you'll get the most out of it. But as long as you keep that in mind, it's incredibly powerful. So if you just want to kill something really fast, it's a good way to do it. Drains your magic gauge though, so keep that in mind. Pretty much all the things drain your magic gauge, except the Moon of Mahakala, which is another reason why it's good to keep it on all the time. You don't really have to worry about your magic usage with it, you I think that about covers everything. I think. There are other things that I haven't covered, definitely. I suppose I will do one more thing. So, at the start of the video, I said that witch time was not the central mechanic of Bayonetta, and there's a good reason why I said that, which is it isn't, because it's not present on the higher difficulty. The game is actually designed so that you can play it without witch time at all, but it's incredibly difficult. I mean, it is a very difficult thing to do. I'm gonna get myself beaten up by Jean here. Yeah, I forgot that this encounter was at the start of this chapter. I would have picked a different one. Yeah, I think I've imparted most of what I wanted to say, so you can stop watching here. I'm going to show a little bit of this difficulty though, just to give you an idea of what you're in for. But it's amazing when you get to this point, you see just how it was actually designed this way. It's an incredible revelatory sort of moment that the game was so far ahead that witch time was optional the entire time. I think it's amazing. And the reason, is this actually on? It is, yeah. I'm doing surprisingly well. I'm doing shockingly well. I'm gonna get, yeah, there we go. Jinxed myself. But yeah, the game is, you know, it can be played without witch time, and the way you do that is by doing dodge offset every time you do a combo, right? You can't beat this difficulty without using your dodge offset all the time. And so that's why I say it's the central mechanic of the game. Because you need it. You need it. And I do want to show one more technique for this, but John's not really a good example of it. So not only can you do dodge offset, you can actually... I'm happy with that. I'm pretty happy with that. Oh man, I thought I was about to embarrass myself there. No, that was okay. Not only can you do dodge offset, you can do Panther offset as well. So if you've unlocked Panther within, which you have because you finished the game, right? You can actually go into Panther mode and finish your combos that way. So if I do punch, punch, kick, punch, oh, never mind. There we go. So the principle is exactly the same as dodge offset actually. You just hold the attack button, but instead of pressing dodge once, you just double tap it to go into Panther mode. And that's it. You can do your dodge offset from Panther mode. You can actually do Taunt Offset as well. So if you press the taunt button, you can do taunts. I don't do this one often, so... Yeah. Oh, I was doing it right there, actually. So it's... When you're doing the taunt offset, it's quite satisfying to go into a taunt an enemy, and then just throw a Wicked Weave in their face when they try and get close to you. So you can do taunt offset as well. Again, the principle is the same. You just hold the attack button, hold your taunt button, press the other attack button when you're coming out. That's it. And the reason I bring this up at the very end is Panther offset is really, really, really valuable when it comes to non-stop infinite climax difficulty, because you want to move around. You don't always want to be up in the enemy's face all the time. Sometimes you want to be very far away from them and relying on your guns and your ranged attacks and stuff, you know? If you want to avoid taking damage, you don't always want to be right in the middle of everything. And so the Panther offset allows you to get away from them. It allows you to, you know, get away. It's very useful against Grace and Glory. You know, when you get to this point, every Grace and Glory is basically a Gracious and Glorious, which is just an incredibly scary thought. It's as scary as it sounds. But by using the Panther offset, you can get away from them and then get back at them like that, you know? So you don't always have to be bearing the brunt of their attacks all the time. You just have to get in on them, you know, if you want to do something like get the sword on them or whatever. You don't always have to be on top of them. I think if I drag this out any longer, I will just start rambling, so I don't think there's anything more I don't think there's anything more to say. There's definitely more stuff in the game. You know, there's a couple of like little intricacies that I haven't shown with the weapons and stuff. I didn't cover all the weapons, and there's a lot to learn. There's all those combos I didn't show you. I mean, we only covered about 5 combos, but generally, everything I've taught you should be enough to get through the game, and maybe even enough to get you through the highest difficulty of the game. So, can't be that bad, right? The problem with using Brynn Spear is sometimes it's using an attack you didn't see. Oh yeah, one more thing. I'll keep finding things to talk about as long as I'm saying. I think Brynn Spear sort of allows the enemy to attack outside of this restriction or something. It seems a little wonky to me, but anyway. Oh no, maybe yeah. One thing you should be aware of in Bayonetta, and I would encourage you not to try and exploit this too much, but it's worth knowing. Enemies cannot attack you from off screen. And now you might think that sounds like bullshit if you've played the game enough. But it's true. It is absolutely true. Now, the thing that might catch you off guard is that an enemy can, if an enemy is on screen, they can start their attack animation, and they're not going to cancel it just because you walk away. See? Although that guy, he can actually attack from off screen anyway, because he has an extremely distinct audio cue. So they allow him to attack from off screen. I think that's why I got hit by the big red guy that was here as well. Because he's using a heavy audio cue attack. But for most attacks, they can't come from off screen. Maybe not even these guys. Well, I think they can attack you off screen. But there's very few exceptions to that rule, if any. And it does allow you to exploit the enemies by pushing them off screen when you don't want to deal with them. Now that can come back to bite you because they can appear suddenly in front of you and then they'll hit you right away. But generally, they're not going to attack you from off screen. So it's just something to keep in mind if you're getting frustrated with the game or anything. The game goes to great lengths to be fair at all turns. So you really need to, if you're not, you want to pay attention to the audio cues, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to all the enemies. I suppose the last piece of advice I would give you is when you start getting more comfortable with the game, you need to, the way to stop taking damage on this difficulty where it's incredibly hard to do that. And I'm not the best at this now. In any game really, avoiding damage is not my strong suit. I'm better at doling it out than I am avoiding it. But the key to avoiding damage is to predict what the enemies are going to do. You kind of know what they want to do, right? They have AI, like they're not random. See, that guy's running towards me. He wants to run towards me and just hit me straight away. And I know that. And when you pay attention to the enemies, you know what they're going to do. And when you get used to controlling Bayonetta and all the other stuff that you have to learn, you know, when you've done your homework that you've got in this lesson, you don't have to look at Bayonetta so much. You can kind of look at the enemies and look at the enemies that are nearby and get a feel for what they're all doing. And you will get a sense when they're about to attack. And then it's just a case of watching for the animation to start and making sure that you're on top of it, you know? So, I don't really know what I'm trying to say there. I'm trying to say that it's less about focusing on the guy that you're hitting and more about focusing on everybody else, you know? If you want to avoid damage. You need to pay attention to everybody else and keep in mind that they're not just these brainless things that are just going to randomly throw out attacks. They actually do have sets of behaviors. You know, they behave like... I don't know if this is the right term, but the phrase that's coming to mind is rational actors, right? They're playing the game rationally. They want to walk towards you and hit you. They don't want to walk towards you and wait for ages and then hit you. They don't want to they don't want to do anything too weird. If they're in a big group, you know, some of them will be doing nothing because the game doesn't want to throw 10 attacks at you at once. But generally they want to behave in a way that makes sense. And so it actually allows you to predict what they're going to do. And that's one of the best ways to avoid damage. So, all that said, I think that's it. I hope that this will allow you to enjoy Bayonetta a little bit more. I hope that you enjoy, you know, getting a little bit better at the game and appreciating it more. And I think you'll find when you start playing it at a higher level, it's just such an incredibly enjoyable game. It really is. It's hard to put into words. It's just, and I think the thing it has uniquely above every other action game is it just feels so good to play when you get used to it. It is, it's just, I'm going to steal a quote from Sorry and Dash. He's a guy who's really into these games. He has a quote, he has a little Bayonetta tutorial series that he unfortunately never finished, but you can go and look at those if you want more advice as well. Sorry and Dash is the guy's name. He has some Bayonetta videos, and apparently he quotes, you know, Platinum once said that Bayonetta's controls meld with the mind, right? I don't know how true that is, because I'm just taking the quote from that guy's video, but if it's true, I mean, it makes absolute sense. That, like, they are just so perfect. It's hard to put it into words, you know, for the amount of complexity that the game has, the amount of different things that you can do, the sheer sort of natural way it all feels is really remarkable, and I think that's what you'll enjoy about it if you just give it a bit more time. If you're not quite there yet, don't worry about it. Just give it a bit more time and try not to think about it too much like every other action game, because it is a little bit different. Like I said, it's more about sort of not slow, but it's more deliberate, sort of hold, move here, do that. It's sort of elegant in a way that really matches the premise of this Brynn witch going around stomping on everybody. So anyway, that's my piece. I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching. I'll leave it there. I'm just rambling at this point, so bye bye.